Get going.
Approaching the starting zone.
Hey, what's our running order?
Well, Becca's on the pole because your camera wasn't turned on right away when you logged on.
I'm first after all. Take that.
And there's our entry for this week.
Welcome back to the Track Backers podcast for episode 6 of season 2. Thank you so much for joining us as we await the start of the racing season. And unfortunately, we're dealing with some more winter weather, but hopefully spring weather and racing is on the way. We have the full cast here. Once again, we have myself, Mason, alongside of Becca, John, and Mr. Jessup Collinsworth-Pelkey rounding out the lineup for today's episode. And as always, we are presented by Hitch Harness in 2023. We want to thank Tyler Hall and his company, Hitch Harness, along with Clear Arc Industries for supporting the podcast. Hitch Harness is a product developed by Tyler in assistance with the back of your trailer, or I should say the back of your truck bed with the receiver hitch storage for multiple purposes, for safety, so that way you can store it safely while traveling, and also as a convenience when you can go into the truck bed and in quick transit for various projects that you may have with your trucks. So for all you truck drivers out there, and we know there's a lot of you out there in the racing community, check out the website hitchharness.com. They have all sorts of sizes and styles for you to choose from. And if you're a racer, they're dabbling in chassis dollies, so you can include that in your shop upgrades going into 2023 to help with washing your car or just some chassis setups. So all sorts of products are added continually. Hit up hitchharness.com, and thank you, Tyler, for the support of the podcast. And how are all you guys doing? Did you survive this latest round of snow?
It melted, sorta. There's a lot of it, but whatever came last night melted. So yay.
No, it didn't. I had to shovel so much.
I'm glad it wasn't me.
What? Oh, we have a caution flag already.
Oh.
We have a caution flag because Becca's comment is not correct. It did not all melt.
Well. Someone got
just
up
like that, Becca has given up her pole position once again.
Yep. See that, John? This is what happens when you get cocky.
Not completely wrong.
Yep.
Because our
You're not right.
Completely covered gray area. Then position goes back.
Oh no. No. This is a
caution.
This is a false caution, and you're going to the back.
No.
That could cause the caution. She stopped on the track.
No. This
First
morning,
caution on Becca.
I got to work. Our parking lot was completely covered in snow, and when I left the office tonight at 5:30, it was gone.
And how? And I have a
Magically,
question
it
for you,
was
Becca.
pushed off to the side by the sun.
No, it was already
Yeah,
plowed
the snow
when I got
plow.
there.
Wait a second. It was already plowed when you got there?
Yes, but it didn't like.
Oh, so no wonder there was no snow.
So no wonder there was no more snow.
Well, there was still snow on the parking lot.
Yeah, what, like this much?
Probably. I don't know. I didn't pay attention.
Mason.
Unfortunately, I think you went to the back on that one, Becca.
Mason, she goes to the back.
Where?
She's in the back. Yep.
Start
In
from
the back.
Start over.
No, this is a great point.
That's awesome.
Okay, Mason, what else do we have to discuss tonight?
Well, at least the snow here, it's not completely melted, but it did melt a good portion of whatever we got last night. So hopefully we're done with winter weather for the foreseeable future, at least. So that way we can get at least a little bit of racing on the horizon.
I agree. I mean, hopefully this will melt here in the upcoming weeks, so we can at least get racing here soon. I have a feeling there's definitely probably going to be some delays for a lot of season openers, but hopefully by the time we get into May, we can start racing.
Yeah, what's that outlook looking like for you guys? Because Mandan's supposed to be like the first scheduled in North Dakota, and actually just right on a month from now. How is that looking?
Well, Mason, it's a beautiful springtime here in Bismarck. So our snow depth right now is about 20 inches on the ground. So we'll see how fast that melts. But
I
just
got
wait to
faith.
see.
I got faith, John, that the Don Gumke Racers Memorial is going to be the first race for the western part of the state.
You're not wrong, Jessup. By that time, we'll for sure hopefully be racing.
And then Mason will come by and it will rain out.
And it'll rain out. Yep, Mason will be there, and guess what? It'll just wash out the whole thing.
That also would not surprise me either.
Nope.
Well, on the plus side, with all of this moisture that we've received up here in the Midwest, all the tracks should be super tacky. When we do get to go racing, it could be June, but whenever we do go racing, it might be super tacky and it might be too fast for some drivers. And,
Would you say there's too much tack?
there could be. We don't know.
There definitely could be. And those drivers they would not be happy. Some may even call them miserable.
We don't need miserable people at the racetrack. We already got one Mr. Miserable, and that's enough.
This is true.
Well, anyways, let's drop the green flag on the official start of episode 6 for the Track Packers podcast, and we will go right into who or what are we repping. We will start with Mr. John Breckel today. Who or what are you repping for this episode?
Ooh, I kind of went old school a little bit. I've been kind of going old school a little bit here with a few of my shirts, but they actually made an announcement this past week about a special that's upcoming here at the end of May. I am repping an old Southwest Speedway shirt. This is back actually, I believe it was like 2000 and maybe it was 5 or 2000. I think it was 2005, I think is what this shirt is off of. And what's interesting about this shirt is that the cars that are on here, although the paint schemes don't match, they're actually the track champions from that year. So these shirts came out in 2006 for the 2005 champions. So the 54 mod was Darrell Bauer, who was champion back then. Then the J1 machine was, I believe, one of the Prouses, I believe, from Dickinson in the hobby stocks. And then Meidinger in the 18 machine was actually your champion. That was Brad Meidinger in the 18 back when Wasota Street stocks were at Dickinson.
That's a pretty neat shirt. Yeah, because a lot of the champion shirts you see, they typically don't have the champion cars on them. They kind of have just that generic, like, what's it, 20, and then like maybe an 07 if it was like a 2007 shirt or something like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, this was kind of a neat shirt. When we went over there in 2006, I was like, oh, I'm definitely purchasing one of these. So I was just a wee youngin back then.
A wee young John Breckel in the stands, cheering loudly.
Yes.
Ow! Oh,
That's about the same pitch that you yell at.
I know. It's great.
Need to get some of those on the microphone when you're announcing for sound bites.
Okay, I'll definitely do that this year. But I may sound too enthusiastic for some people.
Well, anyways, Jessup, who or what are you repping?
I'm repping an old Dale Ames shirt here tonight. I think it's Dale.
It is.
Maybe it is. Yeah. So old school shirt. Let's see if I can get it on the back. Yeah.
Oh, dang. I was
That's
hoping
about as good as I
maybe
can
try
get.
to guess the year on that, and I don't recognize that scheme.
What was it, Mason?
I was trying to figure out what year that shirt might have been, but I don't recognize that scheme that he had.
Year 1.
For all we know, that could have been year 1. I don't know.
Well, now we're also going to throw a caution flag on Jessup as
What?
the fact
That was
checker.
a joke.
As
John,
the
that
fact
was a joke.
checker is here. Because
John, that was a joke.
Dale, before he ran mods, was also in a super stock. So it couldn't have been year 1.
Let's take a look here. We don't know that. It could be year 1.
John, why are you such a buzzkill?
I just have to correct Becca all the time.
It would help if people had their facts lined up and actually were accurate in their info, that we wouldn't have these caution flags.
This is very true. I mean, if only people did more research nowadays.
It did melt today. It melted today.
Are we still on the snow?
We're still on this snow melting thing.
This is a really hot topic.
Wow.
For Becca, it's very hot.
This is like
So
Josh
anyways,
Williams at
Mason,
the,
this is my
Xfinity
Dale
race.
Ames shirt.
I have a question,
I'm sure
Mason.
they weren't racing because the snow was melting or not melting that day, but
Yep. Can we say that this year, across the state of North Dakota, our snow piles have become quite large.
Oh my goodness.
Well, as Jessup's readjusting to get his shirt back in order, Miss Becca, who or what are you repping?
So, since there is so much snow, there's not a whole lot of racing going on up here in the Midwest,
How does
but
this have anything to do with your shirt?
our friends from IMCA TV have tons of racing on their streaming platform. And I believe there's quite a few races going on this weekend. So be sure to check that out just to get that racing itch. So yeah, go support our friends from IMCA TV.
There you go. I always like those blue shirts too. They really stood out when they were at the track.
I agree.
I actually have one of those as well somewhere. I have to find where the heck that one is. Sweet. Yeah, and for my stuff today, I forgot to let everyone know, obviously, it's a Daytona International Speedway hat. This is one of them I got down in Florida last month, and so cool new hat to rep. And then for the shirt...
Becca, do you remember him getting that down in Florida? I think he might have just ordered it online.
No, I remember him. I was there when he bought it.
Recall this.
I was there when he bought it.
Where did I buy this?
Yes. Actually, I probably could tell you where you bought that.
You bought that at the, what do they call it? We sponsored
Fanatics?
No.
Or the Hall of Fame. Those were the two.
He bought it for $20 at the Bass Pro Shops.
Oh, that's right.
There you go. Bass Pro Shops is where I got it.
Becca, that is impressive.
Yeah. Yes. And I actually saw a better one that I liked a little bit more at the museum, but I figured one hat was enough. I spent enough money at the museum as it was.
Yes, Mason tried buying part of the museum, and they told him no.
We're not surprised.
It was a good time there.
It was a good time.
Yep. Well, and for the shirt, and we're going to be going over this a little bit later in the show, but I'm repping the fresh, new Mama Better Hobby Stock Challenge shirts, which is going to be a new series taking place this summer in North Dakota. They have these shirts now available. You can message the Facebook page for the Hobby Stock Challenge on Facebook, and you can get geared up for a shirt before the first race taking place in mid-June at the Jamestown Speedway. But we'll be covering that in more detail in just a little while. So like Becca mentioned, there's not a whole lot of racing going on currently and not much on the horizon as far as racing goes, but I think we can look ahead to 2023 and what's to come. And there's almost all the schedules have been released. And so we're kind of keeping an eye on the last couple that'll trickle in here, hopefully in the next week or two. Want to kind of talk about some things that we might be keeping our eyes on for 2023. It could be certain tracks, certain series, or certain drivers, but anyone have anything they're specifically going to be keeping their eye on for 2023 this year?
Yes, Mason. I'm watching Mason. I'm going to the opposite track that he's not going to. So that's what I'm watching this year. That's the main thing. I'm going to get my races in. That's all that matters.
It's a good
thing. Which is actually good for the podcast because then we have more to talk about.
Yes. And for race fans and drivers, he usually posts his weekend schedules on Wednesdays on his racing page, Mason Aaron Racing Videos. So just take a look at that on a Wednesday night and be like, you know what? He's going east. I'm going to go west.
We should just post the forecast of next to each track that he's going to.
Yes, especially with Mason. We want to make sure that tracks are prepared.
80% chance of rain.
I mean, there's some weeks where I don't really post a schedule until like the day of. So it's not like I totally plan everything in advance.
We'll just put a picture of rain.
Yeah, this is when tracks suffer.
You have a spreadsheet, you pick and choose wherever your heart will take you.
Exactly. There's plenty of options every single week. So, but other than watching myself, what else are we keeping an eye on in 2023?
Well, I will be super curious to see how many drivers actually come out to the racetrack when the snow finally melts. And I only say that because there are a lot of race car drivers who are farmers. So when the snow does melt and racetracks start opening up, I'd be curious to see how many farmers will either stay in their field and keep planting or spraying, or we'll come out to the racetrack and have a little fun. So I'm kind of not nervous. I'm intrigued to see what the car counts will be once racing does open up here in the North Dakota, Minnesota area. I think they'll be good, but I don't think they'll be as strong as they would have been had the snow maybe started melting like now in mid-March, So farming is definitely going to be a little behind this spring.
John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I have an idea of how many cars are going to be at each track.
I have a feeling I know where you're going with this.
All of the cars at the track will be at the track.
Yes. The cars that show up will be at the track.
Yes, all of them.
By the way,
I haven't even been lapped yet, so
just for reference on here too, Jessup, turn around again. I want to see the back of your shirt for Dale Ames.
Oh my gosh, this is gonna take
You
forever.
probably figured out the year. Don't do it, Jessup.
Do it, John. Do it.
Come on, Jessup, you can do it.
Yeah. All right. You ready?
I'm ready. Oh, I think I might have figured out the year.
Oh boy.
Oh.
So
Tell me, Ray Man.
Let me look here just to make sure that it matches as well. And I believe it might have been 14. It looks like maybe 2014 was when that scheme was out for Dale Ames.
It's weird to think like the 2010s are that long ago. So that was 9 years ago. That's crazy.
It's okay, Mason. You were just a youngin' back then too.
I know. It was.
Probably still in diapers.
Yeah, I turned 21 that year, and for my 21st birthday, I got a Twitter account.
We're proud of you, Mason.
I bet you are. Yeah, that's a good point, Becca, on the whole farming aspect, because that played a big factor at the start of last year too, and probably even kept some drivers from actually racing hardly at all because of how kind of pushed back everything was into the summer. And so, yeah, that's a little bit of a nervous situation, just seeing like what the farming situation will look like, and hopefully people are able to get in their fields and get everything all squared away, and hope that they actually get some sort of racing during the summer.
Well, think of it this way: the fields could be too wet for a while.
That's true too. I mean, they could let them dry out a little bit before they can get in them for some stuff too. But or the fields dry out and the tracks can't run yet, and the tracks are delayed just a little bit as well from that time frame. That could definitely be the case, because that's the hard part about knowing from the snow melt is where it drifted. Did it drift really bad on the front straightaway, the back straightaway, depending on where it sits? And if you have an overhang on the track, is it still snow covered on the front stretch, but completely melted in the back stretch? So, or maybe your track's fine, but your pits aren't fine. So that's another thing to look at from when the season's going to start and who's going to be the track to start up the season here in North Dakota, and then as well as Minnesota, Wisconsin, and keep going from there. So 2023, what am I kind of intrigued on? I'm kind of intrigued on multiple things. There's some specials this year that are kind of intriguing out there, which we're going to talk about here a little bit later. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. There is definitely some shows that have gone from 1 day to 2 day. So we're going to talk about a few of those too, to see, kind of the growth from some of those shows from a special piece. And then I'm intrigued to see, and this is something I'm always intrigued in. And Becca and I talked about a little bit on the last show. I'm intrigued to see the volume of new drivers we actually have in several classes this year, because each year we have definitely surprises that either have moved up to another class or a brand new driver that has come into a class that actually kind of takes off during the year too, and it has a very nice season. So I'm intrigued for kind of those points this year for 2023.
Yeah, that's always the exciting part, is kind of seeing, the new cars and the new schemes. And it's like, well, I don't recognize that scheme and I don't recognize that number. So like, who's driving that car or where they're going to be driving. So yeah, this is always the fun part of the year. And unfortunately, it's been slow up to this point, but hopefully it'll be coming in waves over the next few weeks.
I can tell you what I'm looking forward to this year is after the ruling of WISSOTA to drop the points chase down to 20 races instead of, 30?
Yep.
I think you're going to see some more North Dakota WISSOTA guys at the top of the list this year.
And you're talking late models.
Yep, the late models. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of one thing I was thinking about too, is just like, especially, the NLRA schedule that actually just came out. We'll be talking about that a little bit. I believe that's right at that 20 race schedule. So
That's
if you
close.
were,
I didn't count, so I couldn't tell you.
I think it's pretty close to 20 races. So, I mean, if you were just following the NLRA schedule, you got your 20 shows right there, and then filter in a few more to try to throw out some of the lower finishes. You could see a lot of the NLRA regulars put together a national championship run.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that a lot of those guys too from the NLRA side, they might run, Grand Forks on Fridays too. So
or Devil's Lake.
Or Devil's Lake on Saturdays if they
or
are
I-94
running. So yep.
Yeah.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, it should be really interesting.
Mason, what are you watching?
So I'm watching a specific track, and we kind of mentioned him a couple of times. I'm watching the Cheyenne Speedway for a couple of reasons. So obviously the switch from Sundays to Thursdays is going to be, I think, an interesting transition, and seeing how that all plays out as far as like driver count and then fan attendance. I think it's going to be a different dynamic than what they've seen over the last several years. And so we'll see what happens there. We're actually, I think one of our future episodes is kind of going to talk about like the pros and cons of like, depending on what race night falls on the weekend, like whether it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, kind of the pros and cons to it. I think that'd be a fun topic for us to discuss over the next couple of weeks. So looking at that aspect, and then also like bringing in WISSOTA modifieds, whether it's switching from class or just bringing in the class, I'm really interested to see how the WISSOTA modifieds fare at the Cheyenne Speedway, and kind of what faces will show up on a regular basis. So I think it's I've talked with Benji a few times. He's both excited and nervous about it, which I can understand both sides of it. And so that's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. It's a new dynamic for them, and kind of new dynamic on the eastern side of the state. And so that's going to be what I'm going to be keeping an eye on in 2023. Yeah. So pretty cool to see what's happening in 2023. Like I said, most all the schedules are out. We're just waiting for the last couple that are going to trickle in. Has Dakota Dirt updated their latest schedule list over the last week or so? Apparently not, because he did not.
Dakota Dirt is very quiet right now. Now, however,
I was
fans
catching up on a work email.
Now, however, race fans, now, if you do want your one-stop shop, remember, one-stop shop for everything North Dakota racing news, results, schedules, and much more, since most of them have already been updated on the site, and they are your one-stop shop for everything North Dakota racing news, results, and much more. Again, Dakota Dirt, they are social on social media platforms.
Yes, thank you, John. Rephrase your question, Mason. I was honestly in the middle of responding to a work email that just came through.
I was just wondering if your schedule was updated with all the recent schedule releases, such as like the NLRA and NOSA.
Yeah, we posted all of that. We posted NOSA, we posted River Cities, we posted the NLRA, and the new, the newly rescheduled Dickinson Late Model Show as well. It sounds like the Southwest Speedway is going to be updating their schedule, so we're going to be waiting anxiously to make necessary adjustments to our season-long schedule, and we're also waiting for this weekend to come, as the Red River Valley Speedway is going to be hopefully putting out their schedule, as it is their banquet, as they're also, aren't they in conjunction with ADA as well?
Yep.
So that'll be nice to get those schedules out there whenever they come out. I find it so odd that we're almost at the end of March and we still haven't put out a schedule yet.
Yeah, in one aspect, yeah, it's interesting that it's this late into the, I guess, spring now. But then again, we don't really have any racing that's going to be taking place anytime soon. So it's like, well,
no, it's not so much that. It's more for the fact that the drivers, I would assume drivers prefer having a schedule out a little earlier in advance so they can plan out vacation time and all that good stuff. I'm sure it's not too different from the previous years, but I just find it a little fascinating that it's getting later and later each year, it seems like.
Yep. So that's the last one we were waiting on over in the Red River Valley. And so, yeah, their banquet's on Saturday night. And so that's usually when they release both Ada and Red River Valley's schedule. And then kind of one of the other schedule releases before we get into the Mama Better Challenge was the Red River Sprint Series, which is based around the 305 sprint cars. They have just been on the scene for the last year or so, and they have a few more races taking place. Their hub is basically the Red River Valley Speedway, and they'll also be racing in Ada, Lisbon, Glendon, and I think maybe a couple races in Grand Forks. So some nice progression for the 305 sprint cars and some more opportunities.
Yep. Maybe I didn't look closely enough at the NOSA schedule, but did Ada replace NOSA with the IMCA Race Savers this year?
I would have to double check on that and see, but I think from what I understand, the Race Saver sprints are more of a regular class this year at Norman County.
Yep.
That's so I don't know if they necessarily replaced the NOSA show, but they're just going to be more of a regular class.
Good to know.
Which actually, the Race Saver sprints are fun to watch at Ada just because they have such long straightaways. They put up some really good speed, and they're able to race side by side in the corners. And so they put on some pretty good racing over at Norman County. So I'm hoping they get a few more cars, which it sounds like there's going to be a couple more cars popping up this year. And then there's also good support from, I'd say, some of the guys down by the Sioux Falls area where they kind of race a little bit more regularly around those tracks. And so they come up to West Fargo frequently. And so hopefully they'll be making the trip over to Ada as well. Sweet. So as we kind of mentioned earlier in the episode, we've been actually asked to reveal the Mama Vetter Hobby Stock Challenge and kind of all that it entails for the 2023 season. Becca, would you kind of introduce the audience to kind of who Mama Vetter is and what she means to the racing community?
Of course. So Mary Vetter, originally from Wishick, North Dakota, she is the mom of race car drivers Brent and Brandon Vetter, both hobby stock drivers. Brent and Brandon have both since retired from racing or semi-retired. Brent still likes to hop in behind the wheel from time to time, but Brent has kind of passed the wheel along to his son or her grandson, Riker Vetter. So Mary Vetter was quite the person at the track. She was such a sweet lady, talked to everyone, super nice. And so she was, you could always see her down at the Tri-County Speedway in Wishick, the Dakota Speedway in Mandan, and occasionally over at the Jamestown Speedway in Jamestown. Those were the three tracks that those boys typically raced at on any given weekend. So she was always just that super sweet, nice lady in the pits. She had everything if you needed something. She was someone that you could quickly go to for whether maybe it was a hoodie, maybe it was a blanket, maybe it was a snack. She always just came to the races prepared, was willing to help out anyone, and just all around just a super sweet lady. Unfortunately, about this time last year, she was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she battled for several months really hard just to beat that awful disease. But unfortunately, she succumbed to that last summer, and they had quite a few big hobby stock races here and there, but that was pretty much the inspiration for the first year, the inaugural year of the Mama Vetter Hobby Stock Challenge, which Mason, do you want to let the audience know where that challenge series will be hitting up this summer?
Yeah, it's going to be 4 races this summer, with the first one being June 17th over at the Jamestown Speedway. And then the second will be over at the Dakota Speedway on July 7th, and finishing up the last 2 nights during the fair races, July 13th and 14th in Wishick. And so 4 races this year, with each being $1,000 to win. So really good payout for the hobby stocks or bombers, however you want to put that. It's $500 for second, $300 for third, and it trickles down to $100 at 10th place. And so that's quite a bit more money than they typically race for on a weekly show. And so definitely want to encourage drivers in the hobby stock division to make it to these races during the summer. They have a whole bunch of unique prizes and kind of some point structure that I'll kind of try to lay out for you here. So it looks like it's going to be a point structure with the top finisher getting 100 points, second being 98, 97, and goes down from there. If a driver makes all 4 of these shows, their worst point night cancels out. And so looks like you get 1 throughout show out of the 4. You must complete in at least 3 races to be eligible for the top 10 payout. Follows hobby stock and track bomber rules. You get a 3-point bonus for a heat win. So heat races will be pretty interesting to watch, especially at some of the races where you're going to have, 20 to 30 hobby stocks. I know Dakota Speedway, you guys get a lot of hobby stocks there. So those heat races could be very interesting to play out. If you attend all 4 nights, you get 10 driver bonus points. And let's see, what else should we mention here? Looks like they'll have some, like a lucky wheel draw. And that lucky wheel draw includes the ability to get their entry fee refunded. So each night they'll do a draw to get a free entry fee for one of the drivers. The hard charger, this is kind of a cool aspect too, will win Wishick sausage each night. And I haven't had the Wishick sausage, but I've heard it's really good.
Well, Mason, you're missing out.
Well, I always get a tonner down in Wishick. So it's like I can only pick one, and the tonner's so good, I just don't deviate from that.
We just had Wishick sausage the other night, and it's still as good as I remember it to be, if not better.
You should save some for me the next time I'm there.
When are you ever coming over here?
Well, depending on whether you want to race or not, I guess that depends.
Here's the thing, Mason. If you come over here now, it'll rain and it'll get rid of some of the snow. So you see, I have a plan.
Plus, we have Malacca's food bowl dish here. So if the cat wants to eat, you better come back and collect that.
Yeah, we're holding your cat hostage, Mason.
Okay. Well, I guess I better be making a trip over to the Pelkey Palace sooner rather than later. So yeah, they'll have that lucky wheel draw. Hard charger wins Wishick sausage each night, and at the end of all 4 nights, an overall hard charger will be presented a prize sponsored by Acme Tools in DeWalt. So that's kind of a good, cool incentive to attend all 4 nights there. There's a heat race bonus, a feature race win bonus of $100, and also the hard charger lucky wheel spin. So those are all the kind of contingencies for each race night. And the champion's driver's car will be on next season's logo as well. So a lot of cool things happening for our local hobby stock drivers up here in North Dakota. Like I said earlier, go to the Facebook page, Mom and Vetter Hobby Stock Challenge, which they'll be laying out all these rules, contingency prizes, and the full payout. I assume Dakota Dirt will also be sharing a lot of this information, and we'll be continuing to give it some publicity as it gets closer and closer to that first night. And you'll get to hear John Brecko on the mic for the first 2 nights at least. So get to hear some of our very own at those races.
So if you drive a pure stock, a bomber, or a hobby stock, I want to see you at these races because you would be silly not to come and show up for these big paying races. And if you have any questions on rules, you can hit up Brandon Vetter on Facebook or message the Mama Vetter Hobby Stock Challenge on Facebook.
Yeah, Go out there and like that page too. So if you have not done that, like that, Brandon's going to be updating that quite regularly here to get it all up to date as we get a little bit closer to race season, to the start of it with the planning. They have a ton of sponsors. So thank you to all those businesses, as well as several, not even just businesses, but even several race teams have contributed to the prize funds as well. So thank you guys so much for being involved in that. And I mean, they have a ton of contingency awards and other things that they're going to be giving away, like Mason had mentioned. So thank you to Brandon and the Vetter family for going through and doing a great event to honor his mom, and also just give back to the drivers in the hobby stock division, pure stock division, or bomber division to have them showcased a little bit at tracks, to where over the last couple of years the car counts have been quite healthy in those divisions. So I think it's going to be very nice for them to be showcased and put on some great shows.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the hobby stocks and bombers have really put on some great racing. I mean, everywhere, Wishick, Jamestown, Mandan, they've been putting on some really stellar races. And so it's really good to see that there's a series out there giving them a little bit of extra cash and a little bit more recognition in the racing community. So that'll be good to see.
The one thing too about this division as a whole is that any driver can pretty much win on any night. You go to a lot of the tracks and you kind of know who maybe your 4 or 5 drivers are that are going to be key players and future wins throughout the night. And when you look at the hobby stock, pure stock, or bomber division, there's several this past year for sure. There's been several first-time winners this past year, but several drivers too that can win on any given night, depending on where they start or how the race is progressing, or the battle up front. So that's kind of neat to see too, that there's a lot of variety in that racing division.
Yep. So check those races out this summer. Put those on your calendar. Those will be some awesome races to go and see. So does anyone have, talking about some race drivers or schemes coming out, does anyone have like a favorite driver paint scheme or a car that they've seen early this year? Kind of the time of year where all these start popping up and it gets us really excited.
Oh, I'll start. So one of them that just came out yesterday was Jason Vandekamp's. Came out with his 16 Midwest Modified, and that paint scheme was sharp. It is a black and gray on kind of like yellow outline, and the yellow really makes that paint scheme pop. It's super simple, but it's really, really, really nice. So I think that'll be one that for right now, that's been by far my favorite one that I've seen announced so far this year. I do want to give condolences. His family just suffered a loss as well. So our thoughts are out to Jason and his family as they get ready to start race season here pretty quick.
Yeah, when I saw that paint scheme come out, I was just like, "Whoo, that catches your eye."
It's definitely a different variety than what we're used to, but it really is a nice scheme.
Yeah, and he was racing the 95 last year, and I don't remember if it was the year before that too. So it's cool to see him go back to his original number 16, or at least the original number I recognized him with.
Yeah, he used to have some really nice paint schemes on his Wissota street stock back in the day too.
I didn't even know he raced street stock.
Yeah, he was a very strong competitor in the Wissota street stock ranks back in the day. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was either a Wissota 100 win or a legendary 100 win in his Wissota street stock back when those events were going on. But I'm pretty sure it was Wissota 100 win back in the day.
Okay, nice. Becker, Jessup, did you see any paint schemes that have stuck out to you so far? And I'll be sharing pictures of these on the show as well.
So obviously there haven't been a whole lot of paint schemes revealed just yet. Maybe drivers are still working on their cars because, I mean, the snow's not going anywhere for a while. So they got that extra time, but
some of them might still be buried underneath snow outside.
This is very true.
I did see a Snapchat from John Gartner Jr. in Mandan, North Dakota. He had to use like space heaters, like the industrial size ones, to like melt out the inside of a roll cage so that he could take like his Bobcat and like dig it out and all that stuff. So that was pretty crazy, but very entertaining for Snapchat on a weekend. But one of my favorite paint schemes, if you guys follow the Buzz Signs and Graphics page on Facebook, they've been rolling out some schemes lately. And one of my favorite schemes, the one that popped out to me, was Austin Ellis from Rice Lake, Wisconsin. I loved the white, basically it's mostly white, but I love that reflective teal popping color, and then they have a third like pink purplish reflective color in that too. It looks really, sometimes those simple paint schemes just look so sharp and so nice, and I really like how this one came together. It just looks really clean, yet simple, but it's just like, but then again, those are some of my favorite colors, so I might have a soft spot for that. But overall, it's just a really nice paint scheme.
Yeah. Yep. That was another good one too. And he's going to, I believe, his second year in the Wissota Modified.
So I've spotted 3 that I'm actually kind of intrigued by. The newest one that just came out was I think it's Don Two Cherries. It looks like a Midwest Modified here. but it's got it kind of looks old schoolish look to it. It's black, some slanted grays mixed in, just fading out into looks like a white with a orange deck skirting, and then I think that's a chrome 2 on the side with a little cherry. So that looks pretty sharp. I think that'll be a fun one to watch this year. And then there is Tom O'Brien's Street Stock.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one too.
Yes.
Just the body itself looks pretty cool. But it's a super clean design, and I like the colors involved with it. It's not over the top aggressive, like too much going on in the background. It's pretty simple with the lines and the works with it, and you can read everything on it pretty easily. And the other one, if I can find it here, I think is it Paul Butterfield?
Oh, the number 2, that kind of
that
blue and pink mix a little bit.
Well, what do they call it here? It is,
there's a term for it.
Tech Wrap Neochrome.
Yeah,
that is a cool looking car. So those are the 3 that really stood out. And then there's that one from Shano it's really simple. It's basically a white with orange and yellow flames on it. And it really gives like an old school vibe, I think. And I like that. And that's going to be Jerry Munster's, or Jerry Munster. So those are the ones I thought really stood out from what I've seen so far. There isn't too much around here that's been popping, but it'll be soon.
Yeah, it'll be pretty soon, and yeah, it'll be nice to see over the next few weeks. Drivers, if you want to reveal your paint scheme on the Track Packer podcast, this would be a good opportunity too. There's 2 that have stuck out to me over the last couple weeks or last couple months. I would say the first one, do you guys remember seeing Glenn Mitchell's paint scheme a month or so ago?
Yes, that's right.
I think so.
It's a gray and purple scheme. And I'm assuming he's coming back up in this area to race this year, but he's got like a little boxing kangaroo on it on the side with his 1 Aussie number.
The purple really pops on that scheme.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to look really cool around the racetrack. Although it might get tough to see in the dark. That might be one of my concerns, because a lot of times, like the gray cars, they kind of tend to disappear, especially if the track's not super well lit, because there's some tracks that don't have the best lighting, unfortunately. So it'll be interesting to see that go around the track at speed. But yeah, that's one of my favorites too. And then the other one, which transitions well into the race event taking place this weekend, was Joey Thomas's car that he's driving for Ryan Torbenson Racing. And so gray with black and pink on it. Of course, my favorite color is pink. And so that one stood out to me immediately, but that scheme looks pretty cool. He's already had it out this year. And so he's going to be taking place or racing this weekend down in Humboldt for the King of America, which actually has several drivers from the region that are going down there. It features USMTS mods, and then also they label them as USRAB mods, but a lot of the WISSOTA guys travel down there and participate in that event. And so as far as people that I know that are going down there, we have Dan Wheeler, Lucas Rodin's planning on going down there. Obviously Tom Berry, who's a rookie this year and has already got a win in the USMTS modifieds. He's going to be participating down there. Trying to think, have you guys seen who else is venturing down there?
Yeah, they actually had like the practice night tonight with some of the drivers on My Race Pass.
Yep.
Jaden Vargas is down there in his Midwest modified from Devil's Lake. So he is also down there as well. I believe, well, obviously like Dan Ebert will be down there with his modified.
Ryan Gerke's also down there too.
Ryan Gerke is down there. Yep. I was just trying to think here out loud. Jeremy Nelson is down there in his mod. I'm just looking at here to see if there's anybody else. I was just looking it up. One of the IMCA guys that we know, Ricky Alvarado, he is down there in his modified. as well. Zach Benson is down there in his Midwest mod. Corey Berquist is down there in his Midwest mod. Adam Brotherton is down there in his Midwest mod. So yeah, so a lot of drivers from right around this area too that always participate down there in those divisions. And this is just practice, and I know they'll definitely have more cars there again tomorrow night when they start off with night one of qualifying.
Yep, and in years past, they've kind of had the events separated. Thanks to weather, they've had to combine them for a couple of years, and so it's probably better that they just schedule them all together in one weekend. I went down a couple of years ago, and it was a really good show. They do a really good job with that show down there. So that'll be fun racing to watch. I know there was supposed to be racing taking place, I think, in Beatrice either this weekend or last weekend. Unfortunately, weather took that one out too, so it's going to be really quiet on the spring racing front this year, unfortunately. So take in the King of America, as we have a lot of the local drivers around the area taking place down there as well. As far as everything else going on in the racing world, good to hear that Mark Dobmeyer is back home in Grand Forks. He had a fiery crash down, I believe it was in Arizona, correct?
Correct.
And he suffered some pretty bad burns, and he was down in the hospital for a few days, but he's back home in Grand Forks and recovering. So hope to hear that the recovery is progressing well, and we'll hopefully see him at the racetrack in some way, shape, or form this summer. So good to hear that Mark Dobmeyer is doing well. Anyone else have any rumors that they've been hearing or anything else that they want to bring up?
Yeah, couple things here, Mason, too. So I know like NLRA announced their schedule, NOSA announced their schedule. NOSA's doing the big end of the year show again at River Cities this year, which will be a great show on there. I believe it's probably going to be the potentially the back row challenge as well for through Buffalo Wild Wings. So that'll be a really big paying show again for the NOSA sprint cars. I believe that's the third week in September. NLRA, they announced their schedule. There's a lot of big events happening throughout the state as well on those. Also, it looks like even some neat events here with some of the tracks around the state, which will be kind of neat to see also within Minnesota. Like we mentioned, Dickinson has their late model special on May 27th. I believe that is $3,000 to win, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's $3,000 to win and a pretty good payout throughout the field there. That night, that will replace the show that was supposed to be on the 24th of June. So like we mentioned earlier, that'll be 1 month earlier. Of course, still depending on weather stuff in there too. The other show that got announced too was at the Red River Valley Speedway, and that is now the 2-night Howie Schill Memorial in August. So that'll be on a Thursday and a Friday night in August. So that'll be kind of a neat show to see this year too, and to honor Howie, who passed away unexpectedly here just a couple years ago. So that'll be another show that is kind of intriguing to see here for the late model drivers and other classes here within the state. Yeah,
and just kind of lay out it's $1,250 to win on that Thursday, August 17th, with $250 to start. And then on Friday, August 18th, it's $2,404 to win and $444 to start. So pretty significant payout. It's honoring a great man in the late model racing community. So those are another couple of shows that if you're a late model fan or around the Fargo area to put on the calendar for sure.
Yep, go check them out.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing I wanted to mention too is that we're obviously getting closer to race season, but there is 3 of us as part of this Track Packers podcast that also help out with late model racing as part of the Stock Car Stampede in Jamestown. So it's never too early to start planning. So it's the 52nd annual this year on September 22nd and 23rd. And we do entry fees as well as promotional items a little bit, some contingency awards for drivers for the Stampede that have never raced a late model at the Stampede or haven't been in the Stampede in the last 5 years. So there's some new late model drivers out there this year that I have seen been announced. So again, if you're interested in that, just contact us through Facebook. You can contact us through we actually have a site out there through the not the Track Packers podcast, but also through the Stampede Shakedown for those late model drivers.
Yep, that's gonna come up sooner than you think, and so we always get some messages early in the summer, and then kind of get.
We haven't even made it through this winter. What are you talking about?
And it'll be next winter.
Yes, stop that.
In Mason's world, he likes moisture.
Some days it's nice.
It's not even moist in the winter. It's so dry.
Yeah, believe me, I know.
It's not even fun dry slick. It's just dry.
Well, now obviously racing is not happening for quite some time, unless it warms up drastically. But now is the time.
Racing this weekend, John. Think we could watch some racing this weekend?
There is some racing on this weekend.
I mean, there's
Excuse you. This is my turn.
Brawl.
Excuse you.
So, and Humboldt is on this weekend too.
Yeah, do you want to watch modifieds or late models, John?
So we could flip back and forth.
And I bet the Woo's somewhere.
Yeah, they're supposed to race this weekend too, I believe. I don't remember schedule wise.
Becca, it's hard to view two people at the same time, so you just have to keep going.
Okay. So now is the time that many racetracks are preparing for their upcoming racing season. Obviously, it's a couple weeks away, if not months away at this point. But now is the time that racetracks should be sending their volunteers and personnel to learn how. So right now, My Race Pass is doing a webinar series. This week is for WSOTA. I believe they also have IMCA specific webinars as well. But this is the time to start educating maybe your new volunteers at your racetracks to start watching and participating in these webinars so that they can be prepared and ready to go when we finally start racing. So so if you haven't done so already, send your volunteers to different webinars or seminars, whether that's safety seminars, whether that's timing and scoring seminars. Now's the time to start educating your volunteers so that they're ready to go when racing season finally does start. So this week I've been doing the WSOTA webinars, and there's quite a few new features on My Race Pass. So definitely, even for someone who's been running My Race Pass since it first came out in 2017, there's quite a few new items and features with it. So always good for even your experienced or your new volunteers.
Yeah, and according to Jessup, every track is selling tickets on My Race Pass too.
No.
I didn't say every track.
You basically insinuated
the Dakota Classic
last
Modified
episode.
Tour, you said every track.
Hold on. That's only 6 tracks. That's not every track.
And I'm pretty sure
I would agree with that. I mean, I do believe maybe caution flag on Mason on that one.
Good.
Did say every track.
Somebody viewed Mason.
Dakota Classic Modified Tour tracks. Now the other thing though too, and I'm going to build off of Becky here really quick, because Becky, you brought up a really good point. It's a good time for your volunteers to get refreshed on training skills, or your new ones to get involved in and start learning kind of the ropes a little bit on procedures and other policy documents that may be out there that you can follow along with the racetrack. But also for the drivers, quick announcements on here too. A lot of tracks have opened up their link for registrations for this year. If you've changed driver information, if you change classes, if you change anything, be sure to register through there, because then they'll have the updated information at those tracks for when you come through for either opening night or any time throughout the season to get you processed for not only payment, but also for any information on there from an address if they need to send you information. Also with your license, if you have not purchased your license yet and you are an IMCA driver, a WSOTA driver, an NX driver, maybe even like a USRA driver or anything else, be sure to purchase those licenses. They're available out there. There's links online. Check check out there on Google. You can check a lot of the track's Facebook pages. They have those links set up even on their website. So you can check those out too, and be sure you get those updated. And then finally, transponders and receivers. So race receivers, if you have not gone through and updated your information yet for the 2023 season, if you haven't renewed some of your subscriptions, be sure to get in there and do those as well, because that'll just save you time on opening night, because opening night is always hectic as it is across the board at any racetrack. So that'll just kind of save your volunteers a little bit of time, and also save you time when you check in at the draw shack.
Yeah, and just to kind of build off Becca and the volunteers aspect, definitely encourage you, if you're a fan or even if you're a driver, if you want to volunteer in some way, shape, or form, it doesn't have to be every race night, but encourage you to help out your local racetrack, because every track could use an extra hand or two during the race season, whether it's for track prep, concessions, setup, tear down, whatever it may be. There's always a place that needs an extra hand or two. And so I encourage you to help out your local racetrack and make sure racing happens this summer. So, well, I think that's a good note to end episode 6 on. A little more informative than our previous episodes, but hopefully we'll have racing to talk about in the next few weeks. And so be sure to like, comment, share the podcast. Tell all your folks out there to go check out the Track Packers podcast. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much to Tyler Hall and Hitch Harness for sponsoring the podcast. And as always, we hope to see you out there packing the tracks in 2023.